congratulations to all of those employees. Let me just say this. Too often, when people talk about government, they don't see the real movers and shakers within that governmental system, and that's our employees. We have some of the finest employees in Santa Rosa County compared to anyone else, and we truly appreciate what y'all do, as we do all of our employees, so thank you very much. Next, we're going to have a presentation, Gulf Coast Kilt Walk, by Dr. Tom Grow. Welcome. Name and address, please.
All right. Is that all right? All right. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Grow, and I'm a retired chemistry professor from Pensacola State College. Okay. And I'm also a ceramic artist now. I'm a board member representing an organization called the Gulf Coast Kiln Walk Society. And I'm here today for two reasons. First, to share some information about a project that's been ongoing since 2001. Ours is a group of potters and artists who are dedicated to the preservation of the history and technique of wood-fired pottery. Working towards this goal, we have constructed and maintained 2 large wood-fired kilns. We have accumulated a permanent collection of pottery from many internationally recognized artists, and this collection is worth approximately $250,000. We've collected a variety of historical artifacts from the pottery-making trades in Florida. In addition, we have held 3 biennial clay conferences. These 4-day conferences bring potters from around the country and from the local area. Now, of the kilns we have constructed on the donated site in Holly, one is a Japanese-style anagama kiln, and the other is a reconstructed historical Ralph Howard Phillips Southern Groundhog kiln from Jay, Florida. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a picture of the anagama kiln, the Japanese-style kiln, and you're actually looking at it from the back. It's quite large, and this kiln holds over 700 pieces of pottery when fired. Both of our kilns are fired once or twice a year. The anagama kiln takes 6 days to fire, uses about 4 to 5 cords of wood, and it requires 2 weeks to cool. And during the firing, we have to tend the kiln 24/7. These firings are often associated with our clay conferences or in conjunction with visiting artists. In 2006, a potter considered a national treasure in Japan, Mr. Masayoshi Shimizu, conducted a firing. Next slide, please. He and his wife came, helped us fire this kiln, and that's a picture of them standing in front of the kiln. In addition, we've had visitors Shigeko Honda and members of the Japanese Chamber of Commerce from a region in Japan that's very famous for pottery. There's many, many potters in this one region of Japan. And both of these visits have led to a cultural exchange with Japan, where 3 of the members of our society went to Japan and spent a month there learning about the Japanese technique and how they do the wood-fired pottery. And next slide. I'm sorry, that's the Chamber of Commerce. Next slide, please. And this is 3 Jason Stokes, Wade Phillips, and Stephen Dark, who are the ones that went to Japan. The Ralph Howard Phillips kiln is our other kiln, and this was one of the last wood-fired kilns used for commercial purposes in Florida. It was located in Jay, and the potter passed away in 1955, and that's the last time it was used on a regular commercial basis. We discovered that this kiln was sort of falling apart, obviously, sitting out in the woods. The property had been sold. We contacted the landowner and got permission to deconstruct and then reconstruct this kiln at our location. This is the only one of this kind of kiln in Florida, and it's the only one of this kind of kiln being fired at all in the nearby states. Next slide, please. We reconstructed the kiln using as much of the material from the original kiln as we could. This kiln is smaller than the Japanese-style kiln, takes about 3 days to fire and about a week to cool. At the inaugural firing, we invited the Phillips family to the firing. Next slide, please. they attended the opening. And this next slide shows you what the kiln looked like as we unbricked it and looked at the pottery inside. Slide, thank you. This is before it was unloaded. Now, all of the events that our organization has are open to the public, and they attract both local and out-of-town attendees. At the last opening, which was held in conjunction with the 3rd Gulf Coast Clay Conference, we had over 500 people at our opening. We participate in the Beaches to Woodlands tour. We estimate that with all the events that we've had over the last 10 years, we've probably had over 20,000 people tour our site. Our clay conferences are held in conjunction with Pensacola State College, and we draw attendees from around the country. And at our last conference, half the attendees were from out of town. A member of the Kiln Walk Society has donated a long-term land lease, and we're currently trying to raise funds for a $250,000 cultural center. This center will be the first and only current art venue in South Santa Rosa County. Our goal is to build a ceramics art center where we can display historical items, hold workshops, and educate visitors. We believe this facility will attract visitors to our area. It's estimated that 57 million people attend arts and cultural events in Florida each year, and 75% of the visitors to Florida actually go to some cultural event while they're here. We think this basically boils down to arts equals tourism equals revenue. So we really feel that an arts center in the long thing will be a very positive thing for our area. Now, earlier I mentioned I had 2 things to share with you, and the second is an invitation to attend the opening of both of these kilns, which will be held on Saturday, February 14th, that's this coming Saturday, in Holly Hill. The kilns are located on property that we occupy with a donated lease from Holly Hill Pottery, which is located at 7507 Buckeye Drive in Holly Hill. That's about 6 miles north of Highway 98 on State Road 87, or about 12 miles south of I-10 on 87. If you'd like to come, we would love to have anybody come. It's open to the public. The best time to come is probably between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. when we'll be unloading the kilns. We'll be taking over 1,200 pieces of pottery out of these 2 kilns. We hope you can attend and discover the unique beauty of wood-fired pottery and recognize the potential for an art center at this location. We've provided the members here with a handout that gives you information about the opening and time and place, and would really like it if you have a chance to come and attend. Thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you very much. We appreciate all your work, and really an interesting project.
Well, thank you very much.
From Jay, Florida to Holly, Florida.
Jay, Florida to Holly. All right, yes. Thank you.
And I would encourage everyone to come out and view that process as well. At 9:30, we'll have 2 public hearings, but we'll move on now to our agenda. First on our agenda is Economic Development Committee, Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is recommend extension of marketing services agreement with Davis, South, Barnett, and Patrick for tourism marketing through September 30th, 2015. We went over this on Monday. Any questions, comments from the board? If not, I'll move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2, recommend amended lease with Navarre Beach Area Chamber of Commerce for office space in the Visitors Information Center. Again, we went over this on Monday. Any questions from the board, comments from the public? If not, I will move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
That concludes the listed items. We also discussed Monday some potential signage or marketing of the industrial property in East Milton in conjunction with the Tough Mudder event. And Shannon is out of town today. He'll be back tomorrow, but he is working on that, and we are going to be able to have some marketing and signage out there for at nominal cost. So we look forward to seeing that. That concludes economic development.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. We'll move into the Administrative Committee. First on the agenda is discussion of standardizing Navarre Beach residential lease fee at maximum of $250 per property effective October 1st, 2014, with proceeds remaining in the general fund for Navarre Beach expenditures. Mr. Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I'm a little hampered this morning with my verbal comments. I think I may have to pretty much on what I've given you in regard to a a memorandum in the past. I'll try to answer any questions.
A lawyer who can't talk.
Everybody's dream, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, I do need to note that the clerk's office had noted that the date really needs to be November 1 to key up with the leases. I'm hung up on the fiscal year, so I defaulted to the October 1, but Mr. Burton reminded me of that, and I neglected to put it on the agenda. So it really should be November 1 to make those congruent.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. What I want to do is, we've had a lengthy discussion about this. We talked about it on Monday. We talked it about last board meeting. We talked about it last year. So we'll go ahead and open it up to public forum. Anyone wishing to address this issue, then I'll ask the commissioners what are the wishes of the board. So anyone from the public wish to address this?
Taxation, you mean?
I'm talking about Navarre Beach residential lease fee.
I'd like to speak about it.
Okay. Also, I forgot to say this earlier. If you have cell phones, put them in a silence mode, and if you wish to speak, make sure you get a speaker's form from Brenda up front. Yes, ma'am. Come forward and give us your name and address.
Okay. I'm Barbara Kaczynski, and I have owned a unit in Navarre Towers for over 20 years. Looking forward to retirement and being able to live there. This past April, my husband died, so left me a widow. And as he did, I was told at the tax board for me to appear there after January, certain date, and I would be eligible for a widow's deduction. I said, oh, that's fine. I obtained the paperwork and the death certificate, and I applied. You know what my reduction was? $5. I thought, why did I look for the papers? That was a widow's deduction. I have paid the taxes. I've paid everything. We never faltered in anything. Why do you call upon us, beach owners, to pay for everything? Pay for the renourishment, not have a tax aid. They could go through Pensacola Beach, $1 each car. Come to Navarre Beach, enjoy the beauty, go through Pensacola Beach, not a penny spent. But us, no. We have to pay. We have to pay, and pay. Renourish the beach, where's the money come? Oh, pick up the money. What do we have? Are we cash cows? Where's the money coming from? You know, I mean, we don't rob banks or anything.
We're talking about lease fees.
Yes, everything. The lease
Now,
fees,
lease-
I am speaking about the lease fee also.
On the agenda, it says lease fees.
All right, that's what I'm speaking about, lease fees.
Okay.
Now you want us to pay $250. Before, we already had, years ago, they said, come to Navarre Beach and help develop it, you know, you have a dollar lease fee, okay? All of a sudden, Mr. Brown came in, and the lease fees went up, and we got taxes plus lease fees. Give us a break, will you?
That's what
Thank you.
That's what we're trying to resolve. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Connell of Becker and Pontiacon for the Summer Wind condominiums. I'm going to be very brief. I want to first, again, thank the board and Mr. Andrews and his staff and all of your staffs for the work you've done on this, and we are very happy with the position that this issue is in now. There are two concerns that I have. I just want to express today. I think these are minor. We want to be sure, and I think Mr. Hunter Walker just addressed this, but we want to be absolutely certain that when the new leases are offered, that they are retroactive to a date so that there's no gap in time between the date that the lease credit policy was suspended and the time that the revised lease begins to run. In other words, we want to be sure there's no gap in time where that higher lease rate would apply. And somebody could argue, well, you know, that you owe the higher rate for 1 month or 2 months because of procedurally the way it was done. So if we can work on that and be sure that doesn't happen. The other thing is I would request the chance to draft some language that would apply to the summer wind leases, because that would address the fact that these leases were tied to the ad valorem tax rate. And I think that by doing that, we established that under this Williams versus Jones case, which recognizes that when you have a lease that's tied to the ad valorem tax rate, and the lease was entered into at a time where there was no ad valorem tax, that it's appropriate to make an equitable adjustment to the lease fee. That would give all of us some cover if this were ever challenged. And I'll be glad to work with Mr. Andrews to send him my language if we could have that put in our leases. And I thank you all.
I think in reading your email and then Mr. Andrews' response, he said he'd be happy to work with you and try to help draft that language.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
My name's Michelle Tucker. I'm at 2742 Noah Jordan Road. And the last time I was up here, I said that y'all are going to put me out of work. And I sincerely meant that, but the actions that you're taking are actually helping and moving in the right direction. What I would like to reiterate is just my position is that the changes that you need to be fair and equitable to all. And for some, I think that because the majority of the leases are $250 a year, that's kind of where everything has been honed in on. And while that's good for a lot of people, it's still not fair and equitable to the leaseholders across the board. I say that because the lowest lease fee out there for a true Gulf front townhouse is $87.50 a year. And that's a Gulf front property. If I'm sitting on the back side of the island in a little condo that's 516 square feet and I'm paying $250 and my Gulf front friend is paying $87.50, that's a big difference, and it's just not fair to the rest of the island. I would hope that eventually these fees would go away altogether and we get fee simple title. But in the interest of being fair and equitable to all, if you can't, reduce it or make them go away or continue the credit, maybe you could reduce them even further to make it across the board. I would also like to make sure that the language that you have in your policy, I would like to see it before it's actually put into policy, if that's possible, but will the language for all of the leases be restated that they are now fixed rate leases? Will they all be changed instead of having the 3 or 4 different leases out there? Will they all be a fixed rate, whatever the fee is? Will that be restated in the lease? The other thing that I had a little bit of concern with was the comment about the funds being kept in the general fund, and I would like to say that we would appreciate if you could allocate all of those funds that are collected or allocated from the Navarre Beach be earmarked in a specific fund marked for Navarre Beach. You got road funds, you got park and recreation funds. Can we allocate a Navarre Beach fund, and that's where those proceeds go to? Thank you.
Okay. Michelle, I've known Michelle a long time, so I can say this and get away with it. So your neighbor that pays $87, you're going to ask them to up it to $250?
I'm not.
We can't raise the lease fees, so. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Robert Coley, 8271 Gulf Boulevard. Appreciate the direction that it seems that you're heading into. I know that you said a maximum of $250. I hope that when you look at what the actual cost is of administering the leases, which I think Commissioner Williamson brought up on Monday, that that number is going to come down and be considerably less than $250. I have a concern or a question about how I think we've all agreed, you all agreed, that the money should stay on the beach. What does that really mean? How would that be administered? I mean, I can think of a bunch of projects that would be good for the beach that this money could be used for. Lifeguards west of the pier, paving, repaving White Sands Boulevard, or we need a new fire truck at our fire station. There's all kinds of things. How are you going to go about prioritizing whatever projects you're going to do on the beach with that money? And who's going to be the ones that say, yeah, this is the project we're going to do? Where you've given a lot of thought to that or not, but I think that's an important point that we'd be interested in.
And I know I saw an email yesterday from Mr. Blaylock to Mr. Walker talking about some of those potential cost projects, so I'll ask Mr. Walker to address that, please.
Currently in the general fund budget is we fund the lifeguards, we fund the cleaning of the beach, we fund the non-utility cost on the beach in the general fund, and it's around $580,000, $600,000. So those are current charges that are the lease fees currently are used to pay that are specific only to Navarre Beach. Certainly, I know that Commissioner Williamson has mentioned the expansion of the lifeguards stands eastward. So we just have to look through that. But currently, their portion of the lease fees are used, or the lease fees are used in the general fund.
It'd be interesting to see that breakdown of what those expenses are. Off the top of my head, I have a hard time coming up with how you can spend over $500,000, sweeping the beach or doing what you do there.
Be glad to send it to you.
Appreciate it if you would. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. What's the wishes of the board? Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, just to answer one of Robert's questions, how we're going to determine that, you've now got a county commissioner I've seen over just the last few months become very active in his district. So I'm here to say I'll support what he brings to the table. The other thing, too, I want everybody to know that I did get confirmation from our lobbyist up in Washington that he's been able to secure me a meeting not just with Rubio's staff, but also with Senator Nelson's staff to reinforce our position. I'll be up there in about a week or so.
Commissioner J.R. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification, these funds, they'll be identified within the general fund and they'll be assigned for Navarre Beach. Is that correct?
Well, we can do that.
We can do that.
We can do that. They haven't already been. But what we have assigned are the monies that we received from the sale of the community center, the $215,000. We have set those aside and identified those. But those are the only funds from Navarre Beach that we've done that with.
So currently there's funding. We have an offset or an assignment within our general budget for the money that was raised from the sale of the community center a year or two ago. Can we assign these funds to go into that same pot?
Those funds don't have anything to do with Navarre Beach. That was the old community center.
Okay. So that was more of a district fund. It's not necessarily the beach. It's just a district.
That's correct.
But we can make an assignment specifically for Navarre Beach.
Yeah,
I mean, I would support that. That's what I would go with any of the money, the revenue raised from the lease fees, that within the general budget, we assign that, or we identify it that it's coming from the leaseholders, and we assign it directly to Navarre Beach.
We'd have to figure out how to do that, but yeah, we can work on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We understand what you're asking.
Thank you. Commissioner Letcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think moving forward, it'd be beneficial to establish some findings of fact to support the decision that it looks like we're going to make to reduce the lease fees on the beach and standardize the lease fees on the beach. So I would just like to read into the record here from the county attorney's memorandum. The most common lease fee on the beach provides for a fixed rate of $250 per year. 550 leases have a fee of exactly $250 annual. Another 40 have a fee within $5 of that rate. 336 have a rate less than $250 per year, and 6 leases have a rate of $100 or less per year. In addition, adopting this flat rate policy, providing for a maximum residential lease rate of $250 per year would result in a net reduction of $9,066.96. when you take into account the lease credit policy that was previously in place. So this proposal would essentially be revenue neutral. This would be an equitable way to deal with the situation involving taxes out on the beach and how that has evolved over the last 15 years or so. And in addition, this would require a modification of the leases, and upon request, each lease could be modified to establish this new rate while ratifying and confirming all other provisions of the lease.
Thank you, Commissioner Leonard. Commissioner Rob Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of those decisions that history is going to kind of see how we came about determining this, because it will have a far-reaching impact. And I want to make sure the decision we make can be explained to the farmer in Jay the same as it can be explained to the leaseholder on the beach. And my goal has always been to create an equitable lease policy, and one that could, as has been brought up, the importance of the findings of fact, withstand a legal challenge. And how do we get there? I did ask for what is the cost for Santa Rosa County to administer the lease. That cost was provided by the finance department, and it was $72,200 worth of fixed costs, $1,600 worth of variable costs, for a total of $73,800. If you have 2013 leases, that would get us to around $36.67. That's a lot less than $250. There's also going to be a cost as things move forward. I also want to say thank you to Commissioner Cole for your comments and recognizing the fact that I have been appointed this district and am closest to it, and have had an opportunity to speak to many of the folks there about this issue. But for the same reason that I'm going to put forward my recommendation for the lease fee policy, and that they should pay what the cost is for Santa Rosa County to administer this policy, that they may be happy about that today, it's going to be the same policy that I use on future decisions related to the beach, like the wastewater treatment plant or other issues, beach renourishment as well. And I think we should tie the lease fee amount to the amount that is charged to administer the lease, and nothing more. So it would not be a fixed rate lease. And the cost to Santa Rosa County goes up to administer the lease, then the cost of the lease would go up, but to only cover the cost to administer the lease and no more. As far as how to defend this, yes, $250 is the most common number. But to me, this is also a way that this board could easily justify how we came about this total. It's not an arbitrary number. It is a number that is specifically tied to the cost. I've heard that there's non-utility related expenses at the beach in the 0662 account. That is correct. There is no doubt that there is a cost to Santa Rosa County to keep the beach clean, to have the lifeguard stands. In a minor correction, I recommended lifeguard towers to go to the west of the pier, not to the east. As we continue to grow, the needs are going to continue to grow. This board in Santa Rosa County has shown that to protect military encroachment and to protect the economic impact that the military makes, that we're willing to make an investment from the general fund to support economic development, to support trips to Washington, D.C., to support encroachment, to support a separate department called Veterans Services. We show that we care about our military and the $1.2 billion economic impact that it makes with our general fund revenues. Tourism is the #2 economic driver for Santa Rosa County, and I feel that we need to show the same commitment that we show to that economic impact and to protecting and supporting that economic impact that we do to other areas. So my recommendation to the board would be that we put forward a lease fee of $36.67, and that the lease fee amount be tied directly to the expense that Santa Rosa County incurs to administer the lease, and nothing more. And I would ask the chairman if we have had a motion at this point on the floor. I don't believe that I've heard one. Do we have a motion currently before the board for this matter?
We don't. We're still in the discussion phase. If you'll just hold that thought for a few more minutes, any other commissioner wish to
Mr.
address
Chairman,
it?
point of order, do we usually do a motion and then if there's a second and then you would have discussion? And if we're going to amend that process, if I could just be afforded the opportunity to put forth a motion when the time is of your choosing.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm one of those people that has a variable lease, and 250 sounds very attractive, although I like what Mr. Williams said a lot better. My lease is $911 a year on top of my taxes. It is due March 31st. If I pay my $911 by the time it's due, and this drops to $250 within several months of that period of time, am I getting a reimbursement, or am I just going to be expected to pay $250 when it's due? Or whatever number you all come up with? How will that affect me if I pay $911 at the end of March?
It would be whatever the rate is. We're anticipating making this retroactive to November the 1st. So the 9/11 figure would no longer be applicable.
Okay, so then what we're saying is I'm not going to pay that on the due date, or do I pay whatever number you come up with by the due date?
Whatever number we come up with by the due date.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is to Santa Rosa County and to Navarre Beach. But this policy that I'm recommending has nothing to do with what I would like. It has everything to do with what I believe is fair and equitable. But make no mistake, this is going to cause pain to our ability to deliver the services that citizens want. This is a huge hole. So I just want to make sure that we all have an understanding on that.
Name and address, please.
Bob Hartley, 6794 Tom King Bayou Road. I'm the current president of the Navarre Area Board of Realtors. Back in November, we came before this board and we asked what Mr. Williamson just kind of gave us, and that is something we can defend our members. We're in a position where we try to support the county commissioners when we can. When we disagree, then we come forth and say it. What we've asked for, and I think he's delivered, we met with him yesterday. I think he got our concerns. Our concerns is simple. Whatever it is, we need to be able to defend it. It's not our policy to get in differences with this board. It's our policy to be supportive. But anything that you can't defend, then you're left with the thought of what is fair and equitable. And what he presented is fair and equitable. We asked for that in November. We haven't changed our policy. So we would simply say to you two things. One is, Mr. Cole pointed out that we believe that fee simple at some point in juncture in the near future will be granted. Any additional revenues from these fees are going to go away. So whatever the county is banking on financially is simply not going to be available in all probability in the future. So at this point in juncture, understand the county's got a legal requirement to administer these leases. We get it. And we understand that citizens of Jay should not pay for the cost to the county of administering these leases. Whatever the cost is, the citizens on Navarre Beach should pay for it. But I agree with him. They should not pay additional. In addition, these funds are probably going away in the future. So why not at this point in juncture do something that's defendable, what's fair and equitable, and that's simply all we ask you. Thank you.
Anyone else? RMA?
RMA Bruce, Century 21, 8510 Navarre Parkway, Navarre, Florida. I want to thank everybody for getting to this point. We've taken many, many years to get here. Everybody likes paying less, Rob. I'm not sure if the administration of the lease next year is higher. Does that mean we just have a higher rate to pay? If it's going to be $40 next year instead of 36 something, the cost to everything goes up, and I'm not sure if trying to refigure the leases every year and is how that, I guess my feeling is, how's that going to work? How are you going to make it work?
We could tie it to the census, we could tie it to every 5 years, or it would be very easy to do it every year. We determined, the office determined what the amount was within 48 hours, so it's not that difficult. The understanding is that whatever the cost is to Santa Rosa County is what needs to be paid by the leaseholders and not a penny more, and that's where I would rely on our very silent attorney today to come up with the specific language in the ordinance that would honor the spirit of the motion and I hope the vote that will come today. But yeah, the cost to Santa Rosa County may go up. And at that point, then the leaseholders need to pay whatever that is. It's not fair to say that it's going to be fixed and then the cost goes up to Santa Rosa County. And now, how is that fair to all the citizens of Santa Rosa County that they're now subsidizing the expense to administer the lease? I feel that's no different than charging $250 just because we need that revenue. I agree we need that revenue, but that doesn't justify us asking for more than we should be getting than it costs us. So I hope that answers your question.
We have a board now that is very cooperative with us at the beach. This is the first time this has ever happened during my lifetime, and I've been there ever since Navarre Beach was designated. What's going to happen if you guys are gone and we're going to consider all the costs that the county has to pay for Navarre Beach, and they decide that the roads paving should be the leaseholders, so therefore our lease fee this year will be $1,000. Our lease fee next year may be $500. It's not a long-term thing, and being in the real estate business, we've got to tell our customers what to look forward to. And whatever fee that you choose, I think it needs to be fixed. I just don't see and if the agreement is for the money to stay at the beach, then we have monies for things. I don't know that you're right or wrong, and I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer to it, but whatever it needs to be, the people that have leases need to know what, if I want to sell my property, I need to be able to tell people what the lease fee is, and I can't do it under that program. Thank you.
Scott Kemp, 5525 Hummingbird Court, Gulf Breeze, Florida, 32563. Just a comment regarding Mr. Andrews' email to the board on February 4th that it talked about the third-party lease fees where folks were leasing their properties out, and there was a concern, possible 5% fee on that. I don't consider when you rent out your property, and I don't care if it's for a week to a vacation or 6 months for a snowbird, that's a tax. I mean, if you go to the hotel, you pay a tax. And I would believe that if a homeowner out there, and I don't care if they live in Atlanta or Michigan or whatever, and they're leasing out their facility, their home, then that should be taxed at the current rate that any other hotelier would have to pay. And that's just my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. We need to wrap this up here pretty quick.
Okay, my name's Pam Wingate, the Inn at Summerwind, and we have been working on this lease issue since 2009. At least I have been working with y'all on this, and it's been a long time, and I appreciate everything you're putting in and finally listening to us on the beach. But I have to agree, a variable lease on any properties out there is really going to hurt the real estate market. Not that I have one of those types of leases, but I've sold real estate since 1982. And it's no better than trying to sell a government loan that is a variable lease loan. You can't do it anymore. People will not sign up for those. It's going to put a hurt on the resale of properties to do a variable and tie it to that, because there's no telling what county costs will be in 5 years. You have no idea. I mean, you can't really tie it to that. If you'll do just a flat fee lease and then come back and look at that again and see where we are on it. I mean, I think a flat lease would be the way to go right now. And I know that we're talking about the $250, but that's confined just to Summerwind. And the rest of the properties out there, even a lot to sell it and it's attached to a variable lease, is going to be hard to sell. Okay. Thank you.
Last comment. Then we're going to.
I'm sorry. I want to address the negative aspect of a variable lease. If you buy a property now, you don't know what your property tax is going to be 2 years from now, 5 years from now. It's going to vary based on the value of the property. So I don't see this being any different than that. So if your variable lease payment now is $37, and then maybe it goes to $50 or it goes to $100, that's just the same thing as if your taxes change. So I think Mr. Commissioner Rob Williamson has a very good idea. I think I support that, and I'm not concerned at all about it being variable. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Come to the microphone.
Perhaps the commission could consider giving every leaseholder an option of paying a flat rate at a fixed amount, or what, Mr. Williamson?
All right.
Summerwind's position is that they would rather have the $250 fixed rate.
All right. Let's see what we can do with this. I support Commissioner Cole. I'll get to you in a second. I support Commissioner Lynchard's comments about having a fixed rate. I think we've come a long way. I'd rather see us lock in something at a fixed rate, and everybody will know what you're going to pay every year. So that's going to be my position. I know Commissioner Williamson, Rob Williamson, wants to make a motion, and he'll be allowed to do that shortly. But Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, and I can appreciate the spirit that Commissioner Rob Williamson has on this, and I can assure everybody out there that I think this board's going to work diligently to get that fee simple title along with Congressman Miller and Senator Rubio. But at this time, I just feel we kind of be, I'd like to see it, but I do have one question to staff, though. I don't see any reason why, if the 250 works for a year, in a year we can't come back and revisit this. And again, if fee simple hasn't come through, maybe lower it again. There's no.
I think the idea of this is to have certainty going forward, and I don't think that having an annual review would be something that.
I'm not saying schedule an annual review, but if we're all in hopes that fee simple is going to come through for everybody out there. I'm just saying we have the same option in years to come, maybe not next year or 2 years, but in years to come, we have the option of sitting down at this table and doing just what we're doing today.
When my original memorandum in regard to this indicated that it would be prudent to have the ability to amend the leases going forward. Okay. That was not very well received, and it would take essentially the agreement from the leaseholders for that to take place. I mean, it's something the board could propose.
Right. I don't think we'd have a problem with leaseholders wanting to have another meeting a year from now, 2 years from now, to again lower it. But again, my hopes are that fee simple will come through before that.
And my comment on that would be, I learned a long time ago, you don't necessarily have to schedule something. As long as you have 3 commissioners, you can basically do what you want to do, right, RMA? So if we want to revisit in the future, and that's the will of the 3, then we can do that. All right, Commissioner Rob Williamson.
Question for the county attorney. The way that I have presented that it would be tied specifically, the ordinance would be tied specifically to the expense of the county. The expense that was, we could clearly define that, I would imagine. Is that something that could be created as part of an ordinance?
Yes.
The policy language, in my mind, provides the clarity that we need, and so I would agree to disagree with some of the comments that were made here. We need one lease fee policy, so having one for summer winds and one for another one, to me, doesn't provide the clarity that we need, the reason we're all here. So to come back here again in a year, or to have one for this group or one for that group, the lease fee policy that I'm putting forward, it doesn't have anything to do with any specific group. It's what's in the best interest for all of Santa Rosa County. And as Chairman Salter just mentioned, you know, we don't need approval written into the document to amend the lease. Chapter 125 of the state statute, I think, gives us that authority.
We can amend it with the agreement of the lessees at any time.
Well, I don't know that we have the agreement of all the lessees on this matter, but we're getting ready to amend it. Anyway, it looks as though, I don't know if the votes are there. We haven't heard from Commissioner J.R. Williamson yet on this matter, but I stand by it. You know, if we don't get fee simple title, and I can easily create a scenario where healthcare expenses and other expenses increase, and we could be sitting here with, at some point 15 years down the line, we wouldn't be sitting here probably, but you know, the cost to the county could be more than $250. And at that point, then, you know, the cost to administer the lease would be more than we're bringing in. 250 may be revenue neutral now, but I fail to see where the revenue that's generated, you know, if I'll make my motion. I make a motion that we enact a lease fee policy that would be tied directly to the expense to Santa Rosa County, and that it would be retroactive to the October date, and that it would be one residential lease fee policy. As far as revenue staying on the beach, there's no reason for us to create a separate category for revenue to stay on the beach, because the revenue just offsets what the cost is. There's no money left over to go toward other things. That right there should tell this board that the decision we'd be making is not fair. You're saying that we're going to have money left over that costs Santa Rosa County X. We're going to bring in X plus this additional amount, so we need to make sure that it stays on the beach. To do road paving, that should be a general fund item. To do lifeguard pavilions, or lifeguard stands, that should be something that is paid for from the general fund.
And your motion is?
The motion is to have the lease fee policy be $36.67, and that it should be tied directly to the cost to Santa Rosa County, and that's the motion.
Is there a second? Hearing none, it fails from the lack of a second. Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And while I appreciate what Commissioner Williamson is trying to accomplish there, I don't think that would be a legally defensible position. What we do has to have a rationale. It has to be prudent. We're acting as fiduciaries not just for the beach, but for Santa Rosa County as a whole. I would move that we amend the residential lease fees to cap them at $250 per property, effective November 1, 2014. That's the first motion.
Is there a
2014. It would be effective as of the 4th.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of Commissioner Lynchard's motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Mr. Chairman?
Mr. J.R. Williamson.
Just for clarification, would those funds be identified in the general fund and assigned for Navarre Beach?
That was
I think that's the next motion coming.
And
well, let me
say,
say,
I'll favor the last motion.
Okay.
I vote in favor of the last motion.
Let me say this, Commissioner Lynchard. That motion passes with Commissioner J.R. Williamson, Commissioner Cole, Commissioner Salter, Commissioner Lane Lynchard voting yes. Let the record show Commissioner Rob Williamson was opposed. The motion passes. Go ahead, Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would, discussion first, I would also like to see us set up an account to track the Navarre Beach lease funds. That's going to be easy enough to do. It's going to come into an account anyway. Those funds can stay on the beach. I think they rightfully should stay on the beach. So I will move that the funds generated from the residential lease fees be segregated in an account within the general fund and designated for expenditure on Navarre Beach.
Second.
Second by, who did that? J.R.
Oh.
Williamson, Commissioner J.R. Williamson. We have a motion and a second for those funds to be designated within the general fund to stay on the beach. We have a motion second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right. We finally got there. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I know a lot of people who are going to be happy to hear from me today to give them the information on what you've done. One of the questions that I have been asked and I didn't have an answer to was, I know that the new leases have to be signed by March 31st in order for them to get the new fee. How is that going to be administered? Are they going to be mailed directly to them? Are they going to have to meet here somewhere and get signatures?
We're going to have to work through that process. It's going to be the process of, as I envision it, would be that that we'd notify folks that they could seek an amendment to the lease. If they did that, then we'll have we'll have to look at each of the leases actually, and there are some of the leases that have some archaic language that's not being enforced. Some of that stuff may come out, so it's going to be a bit of a task, but and they are not all due at it's, as far as the county, they start on November 1st, but as far as each lease has a separate start and end date, so we're going to have to work through those things.
Okay, and another thing is some of the leases are directly tied to the condominium, and then there's been amendments made where it goes back directly to the owner instead. I believe the county's been noticed of all of these changes. Mr. Cottle can help you out with that because I know that he's the one who did them.
Well, we're going to, as I say, it's going to be a process. We'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I may match the button.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking the action you've taken today. I would like to ask you if you'll continue to work with the commercial leases. We have a much lack of commercial businesses on the beach, and those are hurting. And I don't know how there's at least two of them. One of them's a county lease that I don't know how they're going to be able to continue paying lease fees and taxes. And I would just like for you to take the next step and let's look at the commercial leases. And I'd like for, if Mr. Roy Andrews can tell me, what do you consider a commercial lease? Is that one that the people live at home and don't rent their property, or does that include the rental properties?
What we've been terming the commercial leases, there's, I think, 11 of them.
Okay.
And they are the businesses that, I don't know that the board has yet addressed the 5% additional fee for rental to third parties. Those have been, under the county's definition, been residential leases, but there's been that 5% surcharge, which I don't know has been addressed this morning.
Right, and I would hope that you would continue that policy of those being residential leases, because if not, you're going to kill the tourism business in Navarre. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ira May. And on Monday, we did talk about, as soon as we get this one done, we'll start looking at the commercial. Yes, sir.
Did I understand that you're not going to do away with the 5% rental tax that's paid to Santa Rosa County in these new leases? Is that what I just heard?
What we're discussing now is that base lease fee, standardizing that at $250.
But not having the 5% rental. Some of the leases have, you pay the county 5% of your gross rental, and that's in the lease. But I think I just heard the county attorney say that has not been addressed by the board. Is that right?
That's correct.
So what are you going to do with those leases?
Well, here again, like we just told Ira May, we're going to address those sometime in the near future.
Those are not commercial leases. They're residential leases. in most of the condo buildings, actually.
We'll address it in the future.
Okay, what are you going to do about Escambia County leases? You know, a lot of some leases out there are older, and they're actually with Escambia County. They're not with Santa Rosa County.
No, the master leases from Escambia to Santa Rosa. There aren't any leases on Navarre Beach that are administered or that come from Escambia County.
So if you bought a property before Santa Rosa County took it over and you had a lease with Escambia County.
You didn't. The property, the transfer of or the change of the county boundaries is different from the master lease from Escambia to Santa Rosa County. Santa Rosa County, during the entire development of Navarre Beach, has had a master lease with Escambia County that's for 99 years, plus a 99-year renewal, plus further renewals. So there are no leases on Navarre Beach with Escambia County.
Okay, I don't own the property anymore, but at one time I had a property that I'm sure the lease was with Escambia County. But it goes back to 1980 when I did it. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, my name's Nancy Agee. I live at 7905 White Sands Boulevard. Just got one question for you. All the leases out there are due at separate times. My lease is a variable lease. I pay $720 a year. My lease comes due in July. My question to you is, if this is retroactive to November 1st, am I going to get a prorated refund on the taxes that I paid, or excuse me, on my lease fee that I paid, because I've already paid my $720, and if it's going back to November 1st and it goes to $250, am I going to get a prorated daily rate back?
If you paid in advance, then there will be an adjustment.
There will be?
There will be.
Okay.
To November. If you paid in advance, if you paid for last year, then you won't be rebated. But as of November 1, 2014, the lease fee is going to be $250 or less if there's a lease, if it's a lease that has less.
I believe the lease fees are paid in advance. They're not paid in arrears like our taxes. Is that correct?
I don't really think so, but I'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
If you would, contact Mr. Andrews and make sure that y'all on the same page on that.
All right, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker.
James Calkins, 8216 Gulf Boulevard. I wanted to thank you all so much. I think this is huge for Santa Rosa County. I think the farmer and Jay will now be able to have an opportunity to buy a piece of land, and it'll be fair to them. And I really appreciate that y'all did this today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Rob Williamson.
I just have a question. So we don't have a consistent residential lease fee policy now. We have a lease fee policy for some, and then we have, I guess the other four members of the board are saying that they understood that some folks are going to pay a residential lease fee policy of $250 plus 5% of their revenue if they rent their property, plus bed tax collections of 5% if they rent their property. And y'all think that that's equitable, that the person that has a residential property on Gulf Boulevard should pay ad valorem taxes, a $250 lease, and if they had it already, a 5% addition, and then the person that has a residential property on Highway 98, they would pay the assessed value on their property and bed tax collections. That seems fair. Y'all were clear on what you voted on there. We had an understanding on that? I didn't understand that. I thought we were aiming for one policy. If you had a residential property, a residential lease on the island, that you were going to pay $250. That's it. And now I'm hearing that it's $250 unless you had were a really bad deal and you were paying 5%. Everybody was clear on that. I was the only one that wasn't clear on that, I guess. And some other people that are here.
Yes, ma'am.
It's me again. I just spoke to Debbie Peden at the lease administration building, and our lease fees are paid in advance. So I've paid for 2014, 2015. So therefore, I believe we should be due refunds on a prorated daily base from November 1st. Is that correct?
Yes.
We're going to look at each lease.
Thank you.
I have to look at each one of them.
All right, we need to move
Can
on.
I get an answer to that, or just some comment? Hold on one
Hang
second,
on, hang
please.
on. We're not going to turn this into a debate. I'll ask Mr. Andrews to state
Well,
what we just approved.
my understanding of the action was to deal with the base lease fees and to establish it at $250 maximum. And my understanding was that the board had not taken any action one way or the other in regard to the 5% additional or 5% fee that's paid for third-party rentals. There are 706 leases that call for that and 74 people who actually do that. So my understanding was that that had not been addressed by the board this morning.
Was that part of the language? Was that part of the language of the motion? Did the word base lease fee, was that used? I didn't hear that.
I'm going to ask Commissioner Lyncher to restate what that motion was.
The motion dealt with the lease fee itself, the $250. We didn't deal with the variable component, the 5%. And we can address that. The 5%, if your property is being operated in a commercial manner, if you are leasing that out, that's what the 5% covers. It's an additional charge if you're leasing your property out. That money would stay on Navarre Beach and be used to pay for lifeguards if we move lifeguards west of the pier. Whatever expenses are associated with Navarre Beach, that money would stay out there and help defray those costs. Because if you're leasing your property out, you are bringing more people out to the beach. There is an additional cost associated with that. Beach cleaning, all those things, we have to have a way to pay for all of that.
I understand. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead. May I go ahead?
Go ahead.
I can understand that's and appreciate that that's what that money would be earmarked for, but I believe that's what the 5% bed tax collection already provides for. Once again, it seems as though we'd be creating two different classifications between a residential property owner that has property on Gulf Boulevard. What about a residential property owner that owns property on Highway 98 and decides to rent out their property? They pay bed tax. If what we're saying is that you could have a property on the island where one person rents out their property and they pay bed tax and no additional percentage, and the next door neighbor could hypothetically pay the bed tax collection. They both pay their ad valorem taxes on the assessed value, but the one neighbor has to also pay an additional 5%. It doesn't seem as though that's a consistent policy. I would just like to know if that was the clear understanding in the motion, or if we need to have the vote done again to clarify that, because I did not hear, I mean, obviously I'm voting against it either way, but I'd just like to have a clean motion brought forward if it's going to include, if it's going to be a base of $250. I just didn't feel like that's a clean motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Cole.
when I made my second to the motion, I understood two things. We were not addressing commercial leases. We were not addressing the additional 5%. The comment was made that one neighbor would have to pay it if he leases and the other one doesn't. In actuality, all of them, 706, have to pay that and charge that. The problem is only 74 are doing that. So there's no comparison as to what one has to and one does not have to. The way I understand it, all 706 are should be doing it, but only 74 are.
Hey, we're going to maintain order, or we're going to take a break, and we'll all come back when we can maintain order. We're going to end this. I mean, we've been talking about this now for an hour and a half. I think the motion that Commissioner Lyncher made, in my mind, was clear. And I suspect the other commissioners who voted in favor, they understood what they were voting on. If Commissioner Williamson has continued questions, he certainly may ask those with the staff, but I think the motion was clear, I think the vote was clear. So we're going to have 2 more speakers, and we're going to wrap it up.
Thank you. My understanding was the $250 flat fee. Also, I've been to all your meetings on this and tried to pay attention to it very closely. I'm also very aware of the different leases on the beach, as many of the properties I have different leases. I'm going to talk about one, Emerald Surf. It's 0.4% plus an additional 5% on top of the 6% bed taxes that are already charged. It was my understanding that those would have been moved to just a flat $250, and then they no longer had to pay the additional 5%, but still had to pay the 6% taxes. You know, for the beach cleaning and all of that, at the $250 even, with it only costing $37 and change to administer, is $212 and change per door, not per property, but per door, that you'll have to pay for those additional things. And so I would ask that you do consider removing that 5% clause, because it all isn't written into one lease. It's not 2 separate leases. It doesn't say you're going to have to pay 0.4% on one lease and then a separate addendum to it that says, and by the way, if you rent, you're going to have to pay 5%. It's all in the same lease, and it's a residential lease.
Okay. RMA, wrap it up for us, please.
The leases are not all the same. They're individual leases. As the county, as Santa Rosa County took over the leases, all the residential property was all one lease, was $250 a year. As the county decided they wanted more revenue from the beach, the newer leases that were done later, or anybody that wanted to change their lease, that was when the beach administration was a part of it. They added, they increased the leases, they renegotiated individual leases with individual buyers or sellers. And that's when the 5% came in. And it's on residential leases, it's on commercial leases. The only way to solve that with the residential leases is make it a flat fee if you want to be fair and just for everybody. Whether they rent or not was not a consideration of anything that's ever been done in a lease, but that 5% is only on some, is not across the board. It's not across the board thing. It's not just the 67 out of how many people. If anybody can understand those leases, I'd like them to come and explain them and explain the fairness of all the leases. I appreciate it. Thank you. I would ask you to go ahead and take out the 5%. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
Seeing how there's only 74 of the 706 that are reporting such income, if there was a motion on the floor to remove the 5% from those leases, I would second it.
Won't you go ahead and make the motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Williamson.
We have a motion that has been voted on and approved, correct?
Yes.
Can we do an addendum to that?
The only thing I believe that I'm allowed to do would be to ask Commissioner Lynchard if he would be willing to amend his motion, but I'd have to defer to the county attorney if I could, you know, I'm not aware of the fact that I could make a motion to change his.
Yeah, well, his motion has been voted on and approved.
Right.
Okay. Then I move that my motion would be that those residential leases that currently pay an additional 5%, I don't even know how you would word that. Third-party rental? I want to make sure that it's clearly defined to where there's no ambiguity.
Well, there's 706 leases that have the language in there. I haven't looked at all 706 leases.
Okay.
But I would understand that you would want to say that the additional 5% fee for third-party rentals that are in those leases are either stays or doesn't.
Eliminated. Okay, so I would make a motion that those leases, those third-party leases, the 5% would be, those third-party leases would be eliminated.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Rob Williamson to eliminate the third-party fees. Second by Commissioner Cole. Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any problem with looking at that. I can't vote for that now because I'm not sure if that's a legally defensible position, because we are zeroing out that contractual obligation that is currently due the county. We are voluntarily zeroing out money that the county is contractually entitled to. I'm not sure that would be a legally defensible position, or something that meets our fiduciary responsibility, the county.
Well, I'm not an attorney. I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and I do believe that that's opinion. Just like the policy that we enacted for the flat $250, somebody could decide that they want to challenge that, the same as the other. I would defer to the county attorney.
I think the biggest defense we have in regard to, or the board has in regard to the amendment to the $250 figure, is that it's essentially revenue neutral for the county, and that was a part of the finding of the fact that Commissioner Lynchard put forward in support of that motion. If the board takes the position that they're going to disregard a legal obligation on the part of the leaseholders to pay $221,000, I think is the amount, $227,000, I would find that less defensible.
And those findings of fact were Commissioner Lynchard's opinion, and it's your opinion that that would withstand a legal challenge. It's my opinion that attaching, which this matter's already been solved, Mr. Chairman, so I appreciate your latitude on the time, but it was my opinion that findings of fact that it would withstand a legal challenge, that we only charged what the expense was to Santa Rosa County. I lost that battle, but it is just opinion on whether or not we eliminate those 706 third-party leases. I'm not aware of the right of a commissioner to abstain on that basis. We have a motion and a second on the floor. I believe we need to have a vote, correct?
I don't think it would. I didn't understand Mr. Lynchard to be saying he wanted to abstain.
No.
He said that he wouldn't support the motion. The board has the responsibility under Florida Statute 125.35 in regard to the sale or lease of real property to act in the best interest of Santa Rosa County. What constitutes the best interest of Santa Rosa County is a matter for determination by the board originally. And the basis for the action today was the determination that has already been taken, was that it was in the best interest. It's up to the board to determine what the best interests of Santa Rosa County are.
Thank you, and here again, Commissioner Williams, and we have a motion, we have a second, we're having a discussion now. My position is going to be, or my opinion is, I don't have enough information to make a decision today. So I want to be able to sit down with Mr. Andrews and staff and have further discussion, because what we're talking about today is a base fee, and as we move forward, I certainly don't mind addressing those other issues, but I don't think we have enough information today to make a logical decision. Commissioner J.R. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification, if we do away with the 5%, if somebody rents out their condominium for the week, they pay a 6% bed tax, correct? That's right. And on top of that, they would have to also pay 5% on the lease. There's 706 listed, and there's only 74 paying. It sounds to me like the honest people are the ones that are at a disadvantage here. So that's why I would support doing away with the 5% personally.
Okay. Commissioner Rob Williamson. Michelle.
Michelle Tucker at 2742 Noah Jordan Road. My comments kind of mirror what Mr. Williamson just said, and basically these, I would think, have been in existence for since the original leases were issued. And there's just a little over 1% that is actually paying that. Again, it's the honest people that are reporting it. And the county has set a precedence by not enforcing it. So I would just think it would be in the best interest of everyone, fair and equitable, again, is the key word, to do away with that additional 5% lease.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This time we're going to call the question. Commissioner Rob Williamson, restate your motion, please.
Motion would be that we would eliminate the third-party leases on the island, Bar Beach. That would not affect the previous $250 flat or base fee.
To eliminate the additional 5% fee charged on 706 leases.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And I say 5%, there may be some 4% or 3s or 2s. We got a lot of different leases out there.
Those leases totaled up to $227,000, correct?
So,
to remove the third-party leases at,
does everybody understand the motion?
I think the motion would be to remove any additional lease fee provision in the leases so that each lease would only be subject to the maximum base rate of $250.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard.
A lawyer that has a voice.
All right, that's the motion. We have a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. And so it passes with Commissioner Rob Williams and Commissioner Jerry Williams and Commissioner Cole voting yes, Commissioner Salter, Commissioner Lynchard voting no. All right, end of beaches. Very quickly, we're going to have public hearings, and then we'll take a break. First one is public hearing is now open. Submission of application for Florida Department of Environmental Protection Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for improvements to Navarre Park.
Thank you.
Ms.
I
Harris.
have a PowerPoint that I'll run through really quickly. This is an application that we're currently preparing, like you said, for the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Next slide. A little bit of information about the grant. It is a federal competitive grant program to develop or acquire land for public outdoor recreation use. The max grant request can be up to $200,000. There is a one-on-one matching requirement, and only one application can be submitted at a time. That application can only involve one project site unless you are adding multiple sandy beach accesses. And finally, the site must be dedicated in perpetuity for outdoor recreation use. As you all know, I provided, along with the Parks Department, several park options, and you directed staff to develop an application for Navarre Park. Sorry to jump around. A little bit more about the grant. The program itself has been funded at minimum levels for the last few years, which equated to about $2.2 million for Florida. They do expect that the available program funds for this current cycle will be back to the typical amount, which is $300 million. So that is good news. That will mean more for Florida. Those amounts will be finalized in July. Projects that are submitted will be scored in the summer or fall of this year, and then Congress will make their decisions in 2016. And if awarded, that will be done in September of 16. For this particular grant, more than half of the request has to actually be spent on primary recreation facilities. You can see some examples there. Next slide. You can also request funding for support facilities, but it cannot dominate more than half of the request. Next slide. So again, Navarre Park is the specific project we're looking at. Next slide. The existing amenities are listed here. I would hope most in the room are familiar with the park, so I won't go through each of those. Next slide. You can see some site pictures just to give you an idea of what is the site currently looks like. Next slide. Okay, so where we got from here is we've actually looked at Navarre Park the last couple of years for various grant applications to improve the recreational amenities. So the items that we are proposing for inclusion in this application are listed here and are based on input received over the last few years. So what we are proposing in this application are those items listed in the bulleted items. We do have at the bottom noted that we would like to replace or repair the existing boardwalk, but I do not believe that is cost effective to include in the $400,000 budget, so that will most likely be removed. Next slide. These are very, very preliminary estimates just for public input purposes. We will finalize these numbers over the next 2 weeks before the application is due. Just wanted to give the public an idea of what the magnitude cost could potentially be, with the highest probably going toward the renovation of the splash pad and the playground, which I believe to be two of the main desires that we've heard from the public. We're also looking at some additional seating and shade, as well as a ADA accessible kayak launch. You can see that we're working with a $400,000 budget. Again, those numbers will most likely fluctuate between now and the application deadline. Next slide. Just a couple of pictures of what the kayak launch may look like. We don't have that final plan determined. Next slide. And what a shade structure might potentially look like in the park. Next slide. Again, we're requesting $200,000 with local match coming from District 4 recreation funds. And today we are doing the third of 3 public input meetings. The first was held January 28th in conjunction with the regularly scheduled Parks Advisory Committee meeting. On February 3rd, we met at the Navarre Visitors Information Center in conjunction with the Chamber Foundation. That meeting was very heavily attended, and we got a lot of good feedback, and we've in fact made some changes already to what we were proposing 2 weeks ago, and those requested changes have been incorporated into the grant application itself, as well as the conceptual drawing. Then today, of course, we're here having the final public meeting. What I'd like to do is I also brought the map, the conceptual drawing, to just address a couple of things before we get the public input. If you could pull up the map, Joy. Basically, we had initially thought we could rearrange some of the current facilities. For instance, we had proposed moving the basketball court and adding seating in its place. However, we've since decided to just shift that basketball court just to the east a little bit. We are not proposing removal of any parking spots. And we are looking at, if you could pull that up, we're still looking at seating, but perhaps somehow trying to utilize the pond space there. And so this is just a conceptual drawing. We do expect that the final will be close to this. I'd be happy to share this with anybody, via email after the meeting, and I'll have additional copies as well. Is there any questions from any of you, or are we ready to take public input?
Anyone from the public wish to address this? Name and address, please.
Mike Sandler, 1905 Williams Creek Drive, Navarre. Here for the Navarre Chamber Foundation. Regardless of whether, hopefully we'll get this this grant. The Navarre Chamber Foundation has obligated $5,000 cash. That's not in kind, regardless of whether it's $50,000 or $400,000, the Chamber Foundation's putting up an additional $5,000 cash.
Very good, thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Peter Zane, 2861 PGA Boulevard. I saw the initial design. I'm glad that we're maintaining all parking. We need all the parking we've got there for the events. I would suggest, maybe outside, that to try to declutter the east end of the park, and if there's money available, maybe consider moving the basketball court to the west end near the new restrooms, and that also would segregate the little kids playing with the playground and splash pad and big kids, because sometimes those may not mix as well as we would like, and that would give additional space around the playground and the splash pad for expansion, seating, shade, whichever.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure that Sheila and Commissioner Rob Williamson heard what you said. Commissioner Rob Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Sheila for working on this and the quick turnaround. Did a great job of the presentation that we had, and want to thank Roger Blaylock for his team and their quick turnaround for the diagram and the idea for. This is why we have public comment. We had some really good commentary. We had a really well-attended meeting, and it was pretty clear to everyone that the loss of parking or a disruption in the visibility of the Panhandle Butterfly House was not going to be supported in any way. And we went back to the drawing board, and actually it was Stephen Furman who provided the recommendation that we look at using a bulkhead across the corner and of the, I guess it'd be the northwest corner of the retention area, and that would get us the elevated seating we would need, and we wouldn't have to relocate the basketball court, and we wouldn't lose any parking. So it looks like we're going to provide all the amenities that the community said that they wanted. That includes expanding the splash pad, which is pretty popular, and we're going to be able to do that without disrupting anything. So I think it's going to be a good project, and now we just need to go get the funding. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So Sheila, at this time, we need to approve the application. Public process, at the end of this process, it'll be over. You're finished with all your public hearings. Okay. Anyone else from the public wish to address this before we move on? Yes, ma'am. In the back. I think we're going to hear about the butterfly house.
Yes, you are. Is it on? You have to look
Pull it down.
My name is Louise Biernesser. Although I live in the north, I am president of the Panhandle Butterfly.
It was on, okay.
No? That's a change. Oh. Anyway, I'd just like to thank you, Commissioner, and all of you. I am always concerned about the Butterfly House. You know, we have 13,000, 14,000 people that visit that facility every year. And we're all about the environment, education and environment. And of those 13,000 to 14,000 visitors we receive, they're not all tourists. Although the tourists will bring additional funds and money into the community, we have locals that visit regularly. And I do just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
And if you step on my toes again, I'll be right back.
Make sure you got his home address.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Rob Williamson.
And I apologize. I wanted to say thank you to Mike and the Chamber Foundation for your generous gift to this project and the time that you have spent and your group has spent coordinating this. This goes back to the previous grant award with the time that you put in with it, and I'm grateful, and I know that the Navarre community is grateful. You do so much, and just want to say thank you. Mr. Chairman, if we could move approval of the application from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for the improvements to Navarre Park, and I would make that motion without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Thank you.
Okay, the second part of the public hearing is resolution including Land and Water Conservation Fund grant funded improvements at the Navarre Park in the Capital Improvement Plan CIP.
Move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes. All right, that gets us through our public hearing, and we have accomplished number one on the agenda. We're going to take a 10-minute break and be back at 5 minutes till. Ed, you might want to take a nap. doesn't make a very loud noise. It's 10:55. We'll reconvene at this time. Number 2, recommend Coastal Technology Corporation develop funding of Navarre Beach Renourishment MSBU for leaseholder portion of local share. Any comments? Keep in mind, we're just asking them to develop a potential funding process. Any comments? Yes, sir.
No.
Good morning. Robert Coley, 8271 Gulf Boulevard. I wasn't able to attend Monday's meeting, but I watched part of it on the internet. And at that point, I think the staff had recommended use $1 million of the restore money for beach renourishment. And I think Mr. Walker's comments were that it would probably rank high because of the ranking that you do. And is that still an option, or did you remove that as an option on Monday?
Mr. Walker?
Is the staff intention is to submit the project for the upcoming kind of first round, if you will, of the Transocean funding with the local Restore Council.
Right.
And then whatever money we would receive, that would come off whatever the local share would be. Same as the FEMA writes it down. And then whatever the state funds or doesn't fund, that differential is going to fall to the local share.
Right. So the option of using some of the restore money is still out there to do. Or is that removed on
It's not
Monday?
one that I control, but
Commissioner Lynchard?
I'm not explaining it well.
The way I understand it, the county plans to submit an application for $1 million for beach renourishment funds to the local Restore Council. That project will be evaluated by the technical staff and scored. Then the local Restore Council will review all of the projects that are submitted, rank those projects, and see if beach renourishment falls within the number of projects that are going to be funded. Now, bear in mind, there's only $4.3 million available. This would take up a quarter of our restore funds at this time. Down the road, we anticipate a significant amount of funds to be available, but we don't know when that's going to happen. That's going to come out of the BP litigation that's ongoing over there.
Right.
And if it is a successful project and is included in our multi-year implementation plan, we're probably looking at October, November at the earliest that multi-year implementation plan would be approved by the Treasury. Okay. It would come back to this board at that point, sometime probably around August.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Commissioner Rob Williamson.
I just have a question. Coastal Tech, we talked about the 50-50 split. Is Coastal Tech going to provide their MSBU breakdown and their recommendations to the board based off of that?
Yeah, we can give you whatever options you want to. That was the recommendation that you and I had, was the split in the 50-50. But we can look at any range that you want to, but that would be my intent.
I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think we also discussed the allocation or split based upon linear footage.
6 months.
Right.
And we can.
So I'd like to see both of those.
We can do that, or whatever combination of those you need.
And here again, I'd like for Commissioner Rob Williamson to continue to work with staff to help finalize that plan.
That's fine. I think Commissioner Lynchard has a good suggestion. We have the 06 model, which is that 2674 model, and then you have the 50-50 that we brought forward. I think that would give the board enough information. So we'll go with those two.
And again, remember
and I know you just cut it in half, but
yeah,
you know.
well, obviously, but that man, the other side of it is these are all estimates. All of this is just the Coastal Technologies estimate of what the cost is. It assumes full funding by the state, and it does not include the $1 million in the event that the local Restore Council or this board, but at some point, whatever the local share is, and then once you bid it, that may even be a different number. So these are just going to be estimates until we get to the end of it. We're trying to keep moving and be ready when the approvals come.
Yeah, I think it definitely gives the folks on the beach that'd be participating in the MSBU, though, it gives them some idea of what they'd be paying. So, thanks.
Yes, Tim Cohane, 1466 Homeport Drive, Navarre Beach. Gentlemen, everyone seems pretty confident that we're going to get the $8 million from the state, but is there a plan if we don't get the $8 million from the state?
Not one that I think any of us are going to appreciate listening to. There's no other source of funding.
You take that local share and you double it, and that's the plan. I mean, that would be the only.
Double.
Yeah, our share and the MSBU share would double.
Okay,
that would be
thanks.
the plan.
That's the plan? Okay, thanks.
And at break, Jim and I were talking about the same thing. It's very important for all the citizens to contact your state representative and ask them to really fight for that portion of the state funding as well. And that would be Representative Broxson. All right. I will move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 3, recommend staff develop scope of services and fee schedule with HOK Incorporated for replacement of the courthouse at downtown Milton site. Any discussion? Hearing, yes.
Scott Kemp, 5525 Hummingbird Court, Gulf Breeze, Florida. I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend Monday's meeting, but I just did want to, actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, agree with Jerry Cooey for the 3rd time this week. I mean, smaller is better. I mean, you guys go and try to do another $50 million whack, you know it's going to go the same way. I would ask that you consider asking the HOK about a 1-story building. I think, you know, and if we have to continue to go and divvy up the space, I believe as somebody else broke up Monday about moving some of the judicial or the juvenile and family courts possibly to the south end, building onto our annex down there. I think there's options that we can do that'll cost us a whole lot less that you're likely to get passed. Thank you very much.
And we're going to be looking at all those different options. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 4, recommend resolution requiring electronic filing of campaign treasurer's report by county officers and candidates for county office as recommended by the supervisor of elections. I would move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 5, recommend annual contract with Lutheran Services of Florida Incorporated for teen court services funded by proceeds from Ordinance 2006-20. I would recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 6, recommend flood mitigation project agreement with owner of property at 3135 Harrison Street for elevation of severe repetitive loss structure funded by FEMA Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant. I would move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 7, recommend renewal of the annual leases for office space in the Santa Rosa Kids House for office of state attorney and guardian ad litem at current rates. Commissioner J.O. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as Monday I said, I'm a current member of the Santa Rosa Kids House Board and have been for the last few years, so I'd like to recuse myself from this vote.
Thank you. I would move approval without objection, acknowledging that Commissioner J.O. Williamson recuses himself from the vote. Hearing no objection, it passes. Number 8, recommend employment services agreement with Glenn Bailey for the position of Assistant Public Works Director effective March 2nd, 2015. I would move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 9, recommend 3rd Annual Autism Odyssey event at the Navarre Beach Park, Saturday, April the 11th, 2015, hosted by the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station. I would move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Recommend 7th Annual Sunset Stampede 5K Run Walk on Navarre Beach, Saturday, May 2nd, 2015, beginning at 5:30 p.m. I would move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 11, recommend Pace Assembly of God Color Me Extreme 5K Run in neighborhood proximate to the church, Saturday, May 9th, 2015, beginning at 8 a.m. I would move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Excuse me. Number 12, recommend retaining Brantley and Associates Incorporated to appraise property adjacent to the Benny Russell Park for potential exchange. I would move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 13, recommend permitting restriction of public access to Soundside Park on Navarre Beach by Juanas Incorporated for Joe Nichols concert, Saturday, May 9th, 2015, from 6 a.m. through 8 o'clock p.m. Any comment, Commissioner Jayer? Yes, sir. James, name and address.
James Dabney, 9200 Military Trail. I'm not here mainly to object to it, but I'm here to see if we can get some type of criteria put in place for additional businesses to be able to go over to Navarre Beach and use public facilities, county facilities, for ourselves as business owners. And there's, unfortunately there's only me today, but there's several of them that I've talked to and contacted that are or feel the same way that I do. I think it's only right as a citizen of Santa Rosa County if there's public property, county property out there that is able to be leased or to be have a three-day temporary pass, kind of like what the Fun Fest does, or a business for profit will have the ability to go and get that county property for that short period of time to either bring in concerts, have park facility, or have events or anything like that. I just want to see some type of criteria or some type of statute, something put in place so that we all, as business owners and citizens of Santa Rosa County, can see before you approve something. We all want to know what we have to do to meet that criteria. Where do we need to be able to use those same county facilities on Navarre Beach?
Sounds reasonable to me, and I would ask you to work with your county commissioner and see if that has any legs to go forward.
Okay. Is there something that's out there now? There obviously has to be something out there now if this has already come in front of the commission to be able to vote on it. How can you vote on something if there's no criteria out there?
The difference is this is an existing leaseholder that's paying a commercial lease on Navarre Beach, and this is just restricting access to the boat ramp for a day. If you're talking about setting or
No, it's not the boat ramp. There is an existing management agreement in place with Juanas for a portion of the property there, and a provision of that lease is that it has to be open to the public. This is modifying the terms of that lease for a one-day special event that would allow them to restrict access to a portion of the property that's utilized by Juanas under that agreement. It does allow, it's not going to allow them to close the public access boat ramp or otherwise. But it does allow them to restrict access to a portion of the property for that one day.
Correct. And I understand that. That's, basically what I'm just trying to do is, obviously I don't have a lease on Navarre Beach. There's several places over there that do. And it's my understanding, like Mr. Andrews says, it's not a lease, and I've spoken with Mr. Rutsky, and he says it's a management agreement. So I understand a management agreement and a lease. I'm sure there's some type of language in there that's, can go either way. But I want to see something put in place where, as a business owner or a citizen, can go over and say, hey, we want to bring in an event. We want to be able to sell alcohol and beer in that county park, either under a management agreement temporary for 3 days or some type of lease for 3 days or 1 day or 1 week, whatever we choose to do, as long as we're willing to meet the criteria, cleanup, safety, all the things that would be required from the board that's obviously put in place now under the number 13 being put on the agenda. There's something in the management agreement that says, hey, this is what you got to do, this is how you got to get there, and this is what you need to do when you're finished.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Rob Williamson.
And I think we have that in place now, in that if you want to rent a pavilion, for example, we have a mechanism in place to do that. I believe at this time, currently, alcohol consumption is not allowed in a county park. But what I would say is we have a mechanism in place that if you or another business owner wants to bring an event forward, you have an idea that would be for a concert or what have you, you would bring that idea forward, and then this board would decide if they would be willing to offer a 1-day, a 3-day, or whatever type of exemption for the event that you or another business owner would bring forward. So I feel like there is already criteria in place that handles the day-to-day. Right. But if you have something special that you want to bring forward, and you're always bringing ideas forward because you're an idea guy, so we don't want to restrict that, I would say, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's bring the idea forward. I can't speak for the other board members on whether or not they would approve or not approve it, but wouldn't that be the process that we have now?
Mr. Chairman,
would actually be.
It's currently we do rent out the pavilions, but they are not for commercial lease. Mr. Dabney's right. What we would have to do would be to come up with some kind of criteria, if that's what the board wants to do. That's what I understand you to do in the park to do that, set aside property or whatever. So I think we'd have to think about it. If you've got some thoughts about what that would be, but it would take a policy change by the board, I believe, to do that on the commercial piece. And because we've always, at least the board in the past has always tried to preserve the commercial leases on from competition or those type things. So that's been the policy stance of the board. But we can look at whatever the board wants to look at.
Mr. Chairman, we do have special events out there that have to come before the board for approval every year, like the sand sculpture, things of that nature. I think it would be a small step to entertain ideas from a commercial enterprise standpoint. So if somebody, if you have a special event you want to put on out at the beach, bring it to us.
Right.
I think we'd be glad to take a look at it. But I think all of those, I don't know if we would want to adopt any kind of special policy for those types of events, because they are so one-off in their description that we'd have to deal with each of them individually anyway.
Correct. But my point is, like Mr. Williamson said, it's the point of, if you're going to bring in a big special events, you have to have the ability to justify the means of getting that person in, meaning the money. If you can't make the money back to pay that, either in ticket sales, food and beverage, or alcohol, then you're kind of spinning your wheels. If you're just going to go out there under the pretense of, hey, here it is, we're going to have this guy come out, and we can't sell beer, we can't sell alcohol, and yeah, we can sell food. Everybody knows the profit margins in the sales of food versus alcohol. That, if you're in the business, you know that the ratio is huge. And my point is, I know there is a statute out there. I know it's 13.2 something that allows alcohol consumption on Navarre Beach. Am I correct on that, Mr. Andrews?
That's correct.
Okay. So as long as there's something in place and we all have the same ball field to play on, I want to hit the home run too. I'm not looking to make a single every day, although that's what I do on a regular basis. Every now and then I want to hit the home run and make enough money and bring something to the community, fill the hotels up, bring people that have never been here to see a concert, and I commend the Rutskis for what they're doing. That is a great idea. I presented it 3 weeks ago on Concerned Citizens, trying to get an idea of who they would like to do. And I've got the same problem. Parking is my issue. There's only so much land out there, and we all try to use it. And once it's full, it's full. So I'm not objecting to what they're trying to do at all. I just want some type of criteria. I can't afford the Holiday Inn, so I didn't get to stay there, Mr. Williamson. Anyway, I'm not an attorney. I do bring good points to the table, and I know how to get to them. I will fight tooth and nail for what we have in Navarre, And I think Mr. Cole knows that, and I've spoken with Mr. Williamson, Jana Williamson, and I've spoken with Mr. Rob Williamson. You know, I'm there for Navarre. I want us to succeed. You know, if the Rutskys bring in a big crowd, Juanas brings a big crowd in, they're not all going to eat at Juanas. They're all not going to stay at Juanas. The building is only so big. There's only so much footprint they can walk in. They're going to go elsewhere. So I'm not here objecting to that. I just want some type of criteria as a commercial business, not a not-for-profit. You know, there's a different criteria on the mainland. It says not-for-profit businesses can use the park. You know, that, to me, that is putting stipulations against other businesses trying to do stuff in a county park. You know, you got a county park on Navarre Beach, but you can only do this on Navarre Beach. You know, there's some rules that need to be looked at, and you guys as a group, you know, you know, Rob and I have had our differences, but I'm gonna tell you what, he is 100% better, 10 times better than the other gentleman that we had before him. I couldn't even get a minute of his time other than when he found out that I was bypassing him.
All right.
So I appreciate it.
All right. And here again, what we'll do is ask Commissioner Rob Williamson to continue to work with you and see what you have in mind. All right, going back to number 13, I'm going to move approval without objection. Here none, it passes. 14, 15, and 16, those were 3 new items since Monday. 14, recommend 4th annual Surf Warriors event on Navarre Beach, Saturday, May 16th, 2015, benefiting the Wounded Warriors Project sponsored by the Florida Surf Association. I would move approval without objection. Here none, it passes. 15, recommend Flag Day 5K fun run walk on June 13th, 2015, sponsored by the Columbianites and Knights of Columbus of St. Sylvester Catholic Church and neighborhood proximate to church. Recommend approval without objection. Here none, it passes. 16, recommend Mad Dash for Missions 5K run on Woodbine Road, Saturday, May 16th, 2015, in neighborhoods adjacent to Woodbine United Methodist Church. I would move approval without objection. 17 is a list of all of our upcoming meetings. I'm not going to cover all those. They'll be available if you wish to look at them. That concludes the, first of all, let me approve the meetings without objection. Here none, they're passed. That concludes the administrative committee. We're now moving to the engineer's report. Number 1, recommend task order with HDR Engineering Incorporated for engineering services in the development of landfill gas to CNG processing, storage, and fast fuel dispenser facility at cost not to exceed $85,850. Recommend approval without objection. Here none, it passes. Number 2, recommend contract modification number 3 to task order 25 with CH2M Hill, adjusting budget ceiling by $25,000 for professional services for Navarre Beach utilities. I would move approval without objection. Here none, it passes. Number 3, recommend contract modification number 4, extending the standard master agreement for professional services with CH2M Hill through February the 24th, 2020. I would move approval without objection. Number 4, recommend resolution and joint participation agreement with Florida Department of Transportation for construction of 2 additional entrance-exit taxiways at Peter Prince Airport. I would move approval without objection. Here none, it passes. Number 5, recommend reduction of surety letter of credit to cover remaining punch list items and Kogan grass eradication measures for a 3-year warranty period for the preserved subdivision as requested by project engineer Kenneth Horn and Associates Incorporated. I would move approval without objection. Here none, it passes. Number 6, recommend final plat for Willow Glen Phase 2B, a 32-lot subdivision located in District 3. I would recommend approval without objection. Here none, it passes. Number 7, recommend paved road and drainage maintenance for Willow Glen Phase 2B, a 32-lot subdivision located in District 3. That's Corkscrew Court, 400 linear feet plus. Glenby Court, 400 linear feet plus. I would recommend approval without objection. Here none, it passes. This time we're going to the Public Services Committee. Commissioner Jerry Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 items today. If you remember, we had 3 on Monday, but 1 was information only. Item number 1, recommend modification to contract with AT&T for Viper 911 systems upgrade to include Ethernet connection at Emergency Communications Center and authorize execution of relevant documents. I'd like to move approval without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item number 2, recommend 2 memorandum of agreements with Tri-County Community Council, Inc. as the current Community Transportation Coordinator and authorize execution of relevant documents. I'd like to move approval without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes the Public Services Committee for today.
Thank you, Commissioner Williamson. Public Works Committee, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've got 3 items. Item number 1 is recommend reducing the posted speed limits on Central High School Road and Allentown Road in the vicinity of Central High School, and I do so without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item 2 is recommend resurfacing the following roads in District 4 at an estimated cost of $125,652. They're listed for you on your agenda. I move that without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item 3, recommend purchase of the following mowers for the Parks Department from Smith Tractor Company Incorporated based on comparison shopping. That's 2 78-inch deck mowers, diesel deck mowers, $14,025 each for a total of $28,050, and 1 54-inch deck gas mower at $6,099, and I move those without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes Public Works.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. We'll now move to Budget and Financial Management Committee. Commissioner Rob Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman Salter. We have 9 items this morning. Item number 1, recommend bid from Ingram Signalization Incorporated for traffic signalization maintenance and repair services as the sole bidder meeting specifications. Move approval without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item number 2, recommend budget amendment 2015-96 in the amount of $10,348 for outdoor movie night events at the Pace Area Recreation Park from District 1 and District 3 recreation funds as approved at the January 22nd, 2015 meeting. Recommend approval without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item number 3, recommend budget amendment 2015-97 in the amount of $51,303 for the intermittent boating restriction signage on Blackwater River from boater registration revenue as approved at the January 22nd, 2015 meeting. Move approval without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item number 4, recommend budget amendment 2015-98 in the amount of $12,093 for the statutorily required technology upgrade for Office of the Public Defender. Move approval without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item number 5, recommend budget amendment 2015-99 in the amount of $34,150 for the purchase of 2 72-inch deck diesel mowers and 1 54-inch deck gasoline mower from Capital Fund approved earlier this meeting. Move approval without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item number 6, recommend budget amendment 2015-100 in the amount of $14,662 for the purchase of benches and trash receptacles for the Navarre Sports Complex from District 4 Recreation Fund. Move approval without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item number 7, recommend budget amendment 2015-101 in the amount of $8,600. Construction of structure to cover the concession trailer at the Fidelis Community Center from District 3 Recreation Funds. Move approval of this item without objection.
Here none, it passes.
Item number 8, recommend budget amendment 2015-103 in the amount of $18,000 carrying forward funds for janitorial services and alarm system in the Court Facilities Department of the Fine and Forfeiture Fund. Move approval of this item without objection.
Here none, it passes.
And item number 9, recommend county expenditures and check register. Mr. Chairman, I'll present these to you after the meeting with the requisite signatures. I move approval of this item without objection.
Here none, it passes.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Williamson. County Administrator, County Attorney. Nothing from the engineer. Public forum.
Scott Kemp, 5525 Hummingbird Court, Gulf Breeze. Just a quick thank you to Commissioner Cole for the nomination to the Planning Board. I would, if it's the board's desire in the future, I will represent you well. Also, on all of these fund runs and everything, just a quick question regarding the extra expenditures it takes for the Sheriff's Department and everything to man those. Are those basically, are they covered under the normal level of effort for the day, for that day of the sheriff, or outside of that?
Typically, Scott, is that he charges for those deputies, I believe, the same as he does the deputies that attend our meetings. They are paid for separately. Now, in an event where he views that there's going to be minimal to no impact, like in some of these neighborhoods behind St. Sylvester, and I'm thinking about, and even the church, I believe in the one at the Pace Assembly, those are typically just in neighborhoods around the church, and typically if he views that they don't need an extra level of coverage, he doesn't assign the deputies to it. But he chooses that, whether if they need it or not. It's up to the sponsor to satisfy that for the sheriff.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice. We'll adjourn.